that keeps up with the story, giving the audience multiple characters to stay invested in. Solo Leveling is the worst story I have ever seen when it comes to handling this power progression. And if all of that wasn't enough, even his shadows get stronger over time. That's right, other characters don't have the right to get stronger, but his shadows do.
What's up, guys? Another video for today. Hope everyone's feeling blessed. As always, you're in the best place for reacts, reviews, and analytical analysis and breakdowns. So let's get straight onto the video. And today's video we have here is how Solo Leveling's premise destroys its writing.
Man, I wish something interesting would happen.
Oh my god, is that a convenient plot device?
My name is Convenient Plot Device, and I exist solely to demonstrate the main character's strength.
Damn right you are. Okay, I got a bit carried away there. That was a power fantasy. We've all had them at one point or another. The thrill of being unstoppable, the rush of the world bending to your will, having more than $5 in your wallet. There's something intoxicating about that. And let's be real here, life can be painfully boring. The daily grind, the monotony. It's no wonder we turn to stories where rules don't apply to us. Even I struggle to roll out of bed some mornings. So escaping into a world where I'm the strongest, smartest, coldest aura farmer alive? Yeah, that's a pretty tempting escape.
It's nice.
But here's the problem. Power fantasies have a horrible habit of turning into slop. Every once in a while you'll find one that's actually well written, but most of them designed to be mindless, effortless, and ironically uninteresting. Which brings us to Solo Leveling, the biggest power fantasy on the block right now. Calling it slop would be unfair. It's nowhere as bad as the average seasonal isekai. The art is stunning, the world is surprisingly well built, but the characters, that's where things start to fall apart. And no, it's not just because of the genre. I believe this failure is baked into the premise itself. So in this video, we're breaking it down. How Solo Leveling kneecaps its own character writing, how other series avoid this trap, and whether power fantasies truly have to be this way. Hey Greg, quick question. We can't even afford rent, so how exactly did we get that fancy animated intro? Simple. This video is sponsored by Polybuzz. Wait, hold on. Wait, so we got paid and you immediately spent all Buzz time on features on the app. Now, back to the video.
For me, I personally am on the camp of power fantasies are just wish fulfillment and enjoyability. Like I'll always be against the camp what thinks that every piece of writing has to be like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece with like psychological thriller, amazing intellectual dialogue, 5D chess maneuvering of high intellect individuals like planning 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. That is just ridiculous for me. There's a place for that. There's a place for your Code Geasses, your monsters, your vagabonds, your Vinland Sagas, your Berserks, and Attack on Titans. These stories have a place in writing, but so do the power fantasies. What just strong guy hits another strong guy, and the winner takes all kind of vibe. I'll always have. It may not be the peak in terms of writing, but there'll always be a peak in terms of enjoyability. Well, not every show has to have one. Just because it doesn't have everything doesn't make a bad show. And Soul Leveling is just one of them. Fun, entertainment, dynamic, immersive. Sometimes that's all you need. But I would love to hear these criticisms, so let's get back to it.
To understand how Solo Leveling undermines its own writing, we first need to understand the genre it belongs to. Solo Leveling falls into the action battle category of manhwa, which is similar to those of shonen anime, packed with high-energy fights, escalating stakes, and of course, its own set of tropes. One of the most significant tropes is how side characters are handled. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You get introduced to a side character early on, someone with a cool premise and a lot of potential to grow on you. But as the story progresses, their power starts lagging behind the main cast, and before you know it, they've been completely sidelined, losing all relevance to the plot. Take Rock Lee, for example. He was easily my favorite character in early Naruto, a guy who just threw hands while everyone else relied on jutsu. But as the series escalated into kaiju battles and nuclear fucking level attacks, Lee just couldn't keep up, and so he faded into the background.
I am so tired of Naruto people, Naruto haters always bringing up, not even Naruto haters, but Rock Lee fanboys always speak good about Rock Lee. Rock Lee had a time and a place in the show. I don't know why people are still obsessed about him, like 600 episodes later, because his story is very simple at the end of the day. He is a character that shows that hard work doesn't always work out. Because there's a big misconception that Naruto is about hard work beats talent, and how Naruto is like goes against its own concept, when that's not even the whole truth is. But that's a video for another day. But no, Rock Lee had his place and his time. The story had more important themes to tackle, and the characters what explore those themes the most are what gets spotlighted too, and that's why we go through it. Because ultimately, it's a story about the fate between the Chiha and the Senju clan. It's the battle of two brothers, and that's who we're focusing on. Naruto, Sasuke. I know why people really wanted so much more of Rock Lee. It's not his story, otherwise he would be the main character.
Is the unfortunate reality of battle series. If a character cannot match the power scale of the current antagonist or plot, they get left behind. Conflict, development, and story progression in these genres are all handled through fighting. So if you are not strong enough, you are simply not relevant. Now, most battle manga manage to handle this to some degree. Yes, some beloved characters get left behind, but usually there's a solid core cast that keeps up with the story, giving the audience multiple characters to stay invested in. Solo Leveling is the worst story I have ever seen when it comes to handling this power progression. And it's not just because of the genre, it's baked into the very foundation of its premise and Jinwoo's abilities. Alright, let's visualize this. Imagine a typical shonen power progression graph. A main character usually starts from zero, climbing at a steady pace. Some characters are left behind, falling beneath the level of plot relevancy, but usually they'll have a core group keeping up with them, plus future goalposts, stronger characters they'll eventually surpass. Okay? Now here's Jinwoo. First things first, solo leveling takes place in a world where power levels are essentially locked. If you're E rank, you're stuck there. No amount of training or experience will let you break out of your tier. The only person who can grow stronger is Jinwoo. Already, this is a massive problem because it basically guarantees almost every side character will be left behind. But it gets far worse when you realize just how Jinwoo scales. First, he levels up like a normal RPG protagonist, distributing points to his stats, steadily increasing his strength. That's linear growth, and this alone could be somewhat fine. But then you also have to account his individual skills, which also level up, stacking on top of this base progression. Now we're looking at quadratic growth. And then everything just goes to hell when you introduce his shadows. Jinwoo has the ability to resurrect enemies he defeats, turning them into his personal army. That means every major fight directly adds to his strength. Struggle against an incredibly difficult opponent? Doesn't matter. He now owns that opponent's power, fully, with no caveats, as well as infinite revives as long as he has mana. So for the story to maintain tension, the enemies Jinwoo faces must be ridiculously more
inherently incorrect right here. Whenever Jinwoo revives a character, or revives an opponent, they actually start off weaker than once they were alive. This is mentioned multiple times through Igris, when Igris is first revived, when Tusk is first revived, the characters he revives are weaker, so that inherently defeats this point right here. But let's keep going.
More powerful than the ones he has faced before, putting him on track for cubic growth. And if all of that wasn't enough, even his shadows get stronger over time. That's right, other characters don't have the right to get stronger, but his shadows do. So instead of them becoming irrelevant as he moves forward, like that Caterpie on your Pokemon run, they scale with him, stacking on yet another layer of progression. So while everyone else is stuck at a constant level, Jinwoo isn't just growing linearly, not just quadratically, not even cubically, he's growing at a fucking quartic rate. This isn't just overpowered, it's escalation hell, requiring every new antagonist and plot obstacle to be at a ridiculous level of strength compared to what came before. If you really want to understand how devious this escalation is, then let's take a look at Goto. Goto is initially introduced as the strongest Japanese hunter, the top of the top, and S rank among S ranks. And the narrative sets up Japanese hunters as a legitimate threat, even framing them as superior to Korean strongest. So naturally, Goto is taken as someone we're meant to be paying attention to. Then the Juju Island arc happens, and the escalation completely obliterates that setup. S rank is supposedly the ceiling of human strength in this world. These are national level weapons, apex hunters who carry their entire country's safety on their backs. And Baru? Baru just walks through them, literally. There's no fight, no tension, he just appears and starts decapitating S ranks like their fodder. Why didn't he do this to the Korean hunters, even though they're weaker? No, don't ask that question. Okay, but surely Goto is different. He's the strongest of the strong. He'll at least hold his own for a second, maybe at least injure Baru. Something that justifies that arc-long build-up Japanese S ranks have been given. Nope, he dies instantly, doesn't even land a hit, doesn't show a single unique ability, he just dies as quickly as the rest of his team, and that's it. The story couldn't even pretend that he mattered.
That's the anime.
This isn't just about Goto, this is a recurring problem with almost every character in this series. You cannot get attached to anyone because they will instantly be made irrelevant.
With the whole Baru situation, firstly, Goto actually puts up a bit longer of a fight. It's not as straightforward as it does seem to be, just because there is a cutaway. And also, he also has healing abilities, so even if Baru was injured during that fight, he would have healed when he came back. So that's just part of his abilities. And throughout this video is about how solo leveling premise destroys its own writing, but all he's saying is how the premise literally defines the writing. The writing defines the premise. Like, everything literally aligns to the premise it set for itself. I don't really see where where the contradiction is or where it's destroying this writing. If anything, the writing is enhancing everything he's saying. So it really makes no sense. Like, what do you guys think? Are you in agreement? Because I think this video is just an L all around. Like, but
event within an arc or two. The second that they're introduced, you can already hear the clock ticking on how long before Jinwoo and the plot completely outscales them. The one that personally peeved me the most was this guy, hyped up as humanity's ultimate weapon. Cool title, cool design, cool everything, yet nothing to show for it. Just another peon who exists to show how far behind everyone else is compared to Jinwoo. And I liked this character, I really did. And now I just have to accept that because of the way the series is built, it's literally impossible to care about any character who isn't Jinwoo. I just checked his wiki page, man. This is sad as hell. I just know he gets outscaled instantly. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those people who thinks that every story needs to have some deep or grand message. But at the very least, you've got to give some attention to the rest of your cast. Think about it. Most power fantasies follow a familiar formula. The side characters struggle, the stakes get high, and then the main character steps in to save the day. It works because the build-up is what makes that payoff satisfying. But if your characters are completely uninteresting, then the build-up, aka 70% of the story, becomes low grade. And if 70% of your series is uninteresting, then the whole thing starts to fall apart. Take One Punch Man for example. Unlike Solo Leveling, it's not just good fights and animation, it's filled with memorable characters as well. Genos, Mumen Rider, Garo, the story lets them shine. They aren't just props for Saitama, they have arcs, goals, and relevance. That's what makes the action and comedy hit harder. Or compare it to Hunter x Hunter, and let's be honest, the Jeju Island arc from Solo Leveling at least mirrors the Chimera Ant arc in structure. But where Solo Leveling used its cast to prop up Jinwoo, Hunter x Hunter used its cast and story to explore trauma, morality, and the cost of revenge. It made everyone feel important. And yeah, some fans will say Solo Leveling doesn't need to be deep, that it's just about cool fights and hype and aura. And sure, sometimes that's enough. But even the smallest amounts of extra care can take your story from fun to unforgettable. So if you're a writer watching this, just remember, unless you have a truly, and I mean a truly compelling main character, you never let them leave the rest of the cast in the dust. Your audience will be unsatisfied, your world will be half-baked, and worst of all, your story will suffer. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree? Either way, if you enjoyed, drop a like and a subscribe.
You know, I've been speaking, I don't agree at all with this video. Like, he aced the other video with Let Them Die, but this one I have to disagree with, because characters are as memorable as they are for their specific arc. They don't have to progress anymore. They don't have to, like, be relevant the entire series. The story is Jinwoo and Jinwoo getting stronger. Nowhere in the story does it say is Jinwoo and friends getting stronger. Nowhere does it say state any sort of kind of group at the start, whether it's like your Team 7 or your Straw Hats, for example. Like there's no established group he is with that grows with him because he is on his own at the end of the day. It is solo leveling. The characters are irrelevant in the moment, but once the story doesn't need them anymore, they move on. And that's all there really needs to be with it. Or it's that demon girl in demon arc where it's like his like the ginger haired girl from the earlier arcs with the guy with who lost his arm in the earlier arcs. Characters are relevant for their arcs, and that's all they need to be. Like, if you want the story to be something it's not, then it would be a different story. Then it wouldn't be solo leveling because it would be group leveling at that point. But that's not how it works. Solo leveling, and to say it's forgettable, solo leveling will always be rememberable. It's the number one. It's one of the number one all-time best-selling manhwas. What's really set the stage for what manhwa is about. To say it's forgettable is a weird take because it's literally like the most known, most enjoyed, and most annoyed and enjoyed manhwa of all time, and forever will be. That for a long time. And it got a manga specifically because it is memorable and it's hype. And no one's going to forget about it. And to say it's the very fact that it even has an anime of this quality just even further reinforces how it's unforgettable and it's great, irrespective of all the cons that have been mentioned. But that's just me. Like I said, I really enjoy solo leveling. I have read the manga from start to the end, well before the anime started. And back when it was literally weekly, back in 2020. So I have a lot more depth and care and love for it because it is really enjoyable. It's the first manhwa I read, and the anime does it a bit injustice. A lot of the side characters are stripped away a bit more in anime. So if you're an anime only fan, I can see why you may say that, but obviously the manhwa isn't that much more, but it is still more at the end of the day, and a little more might just elevate that a little bit more. Those people who think it's a little bit shallow, but that's just me. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Am I in the wrong? Is the author in the wrong? Whose side are you on? Maybe not even wrong, but whose side are you on? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. But thank you. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.